just like I told you last week, this week we're doing the rear struts and stabilizer bar link rods for this 2007 Toyota Solara. The job is similar to an Avalon, a Camry, and a Lexus ES330. The only difference, this one is a two-door versus a four-door, and you can do the job by yourself even if it's a two-door. Let me show you. First things first, we're going to talk about some parts and prices. Everything was purchased at Parts Geek, and if you're just buying the rear struts for the Toyota Solara, a set of two that looks like that. Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up. Well, anyway, two struts will cost you about $205.90. But if you buy the whole assembly with the link rods, cost you $205.95. Now what I did, I bought the front and rear shocks a few weeks ago, and what I did, let me see if I can get a better angle here because the sun is in the back of it. And what I did, I ended up buying the four shocks front and back. It only came with the front, the stabilizer bar link rods, so I ended up buying the rear stabilizer bar link rods separately, and that was $35.95, as you can see. So, but if you buy the struts with the stabilizer bar link rods, it's $205. If you're just buying the struts, a set of two will cost you $205.90. And if you ended up buying, like I did, the link rods for the rear stabilizer bar separate, it's like an additional $40. So you're looking at about $240, but if you just buy the whole assembly, again, it's $205.95 plus, taxes, shipping, and handling. Actually, shipping is free, so plus taxes. So now you know how much it will cost you to get shocks from Detroit Axle for the Toyota Solara, or even a Camry or an Avalon, or an ES330 Lexus, which is essentially the same thing. Now that we talked about some parts and prices for 2025, let's talk about some procedures. The procedures, as always, I recommend get this maintenance manual right here. It's for Toyota Camry, Solara, Avalon, and Lexus ES300, 330 from 2006 to 2008, and for the Solara from 2002 to 2008. The procedures vary a little bit from model to model, but the concept is always the same. Be sure to follow all maintenance procedures. All your torque specs are going to be at the beginning of chapter 10 for the suspension components. First thing we're going to do, we're going to obviously break torque on everything. But before we get into the job itself, I want to talk to you about some of the tools you're going to need. Hammers, I got a rubber mallet, a regular hammer. You're going to need some 3/8 drive with a 14mm socket, 6mm Allen, 1/2-inch drive, a 1/4-inch drive ratchets, 10 and 12mm punches. I have several of them to help me align the holes for when the time comes to do these two big bolts here, and I'll show you how we're going to do this. Torque wrenches. The torque in the back, unlike the front, is a lot less. So from a 30 to 150 foot-pound 1/2-inch drive torque wrench will suffice. 3/8 drive torque wrench up to 100 foot-pounds, and make sure your stuff is calibrated. Then a bunch of punches, like I said. You're going to need a 14, a 19, and a 15mm. And a 1/2-inch drive 19mm socket, and a trusty impact tool if you have it. Get a little lube if you can. It'll help you take stuff apart a little easier. I use LPS2. It's just a lubricating oil. And obviously 1/2-inch drive impacts. It goes without saying, you're going to need a jack and some jack stands, and if you're working on your knees like I am, a mat really helps. So now that we talked about parts, prices, tools you're going to need, let's jump in this job. And it's actually a lot easier than the front. And even though it's a one-door, it's a two-door car, I'm going to show you how you can still do it on your own with the jack without needing help from somebody on the inside of the car to set the nuts for the strut. Let's dive right in. Okay, I already sprayed some lubricating oil on the points for the stabilizer bar link rods. This one here is still the original one. You're going to require a 6mm Allen that goes down the middle and a 14mm nut. You're going to need a 12mm socket, 10 millimeter socket. We're also going to disconnect it here so that we have some wiggle room to play with. These are 19 millimeter nuts and bolts. If you have an impact, great. It'll make life a lot easier. And then the nuts on the inside behind the seat, which we don't have to remove the seats because it's a two-door, and I'll show you. You're going to need a 12 millimeter wrench, or actually a socket will really help with 3/8 drive. Okay, so I'm going to set you up on a tripod and let's disassemble this rear strut. First thing I want to do is remove the stabilizer bar because we are getting a new one. The original one has a 6 millimeter Allen at the center, and it's going to be a 14 millimeter nut to separate it. So we'll do that. Okay, and we'll disconnect it from the there it is. This one is disconnected. And we'll do the same thing on the bottom here. After disconnecting the stabilizer bar link rods, we'll go ahead and remove all the harnesses from the strut. You know, guys, I never mentioned this, but if you're married, you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, your wife or a husband or a lover or whoever it is in your life, will really appreciate you if your hands are clean. That's the reason why I use a latex gloves, and my wife really appreciate it when I stay clean. Probably hear voices of kids in the back because I got kids right now playing with my daughter. I got the sprinklers on and they're running in the sprinklers. You know, the weather is getting warmer and they're really enjoying themselves. So we're almost done with the disconnecting all the harness, getting it out of the way. Give us some slack. So here it is. This is all out of the way. We can now brake torque. Excuse me. Okay, this is done. You will need a jack to prop it under here. To prop it under here to help you with the dislodging of the strut from the rear knuckle. Okay, let's move on the inside of the cabin and I'll show you how we're gonna loosen up the nuts on top. And this is how you access the 12 millimeter nuts that it's for the rear. Now you'll notice that the rear right seat is down. That's because I already did the right side, which I'll show you later. So what you'll do is you're gonna put the seat down like so. You're gonna get these seat belts out of the way. There's this knob, you pull on it, you put the seat down. There's gonna be some cert clip. What you do, you punch in slightly and you'll pull out the little retainer so you could use them again. And then if you just bend this like so, without breaking anything, you'll notice that the nuts are right back here. Can you see them? You lift up the insulation mat and here they are, 12 millimeters. And we'll brake torque. Now mind you, I already have a jack propped up under it so that this strut assembly doesn't collapse on me. We're now back on the bottom, and what we're gonna do is punch out these two pins. There's gonna be some tension on it because this thing is about to come apart. What we can try to do is see if this one comes out. Let's try with an impact. There we go, this bolt is out. I'm using a brass punch so that I don't ruin the threads. Okay, the other pin is also out. I'm gonna play around with the jack a little bit until you have enough. Just gonna punch the brass punch out from the other side. All right, this is free. We're gonna lower the jack. The strut is also coming down, as you can tell. There it is. All right, guys, the strut is out, and that's how you do it on your own. So just like I took the strut out, I inserted back in this cavity, and I pinned one of the holes of the knuckle to the strut with a punch. I placed the jack, as you can see, under this part of the rear knuckle. I'm gonna lift the jack with my leg as I align the holes to drive the strut up in its holes. Okay, going up with my leg on the jack, and there you go. The jack is set. Not the jack, sorry, the strut, the 3 top studs. It's set in its cavity, so we can now put the nuts on top to prop up the strut. Though the new strut came with the hardware, I'm going to install the original 12mm nuts, because actually they look nice. I like them. So I'm just going to use the same ones. We set them all the way down, and we'll torque everything at the end when the car is weight on wheels. Okay, the nuts are set. Let's get back on the bottom. Now that the strut is pinned on top, we can actually lower the jack, and we're going to there's going to be a little bit of a struggle. That's how it was on the right side, to try and put those the two bolts, the two 19mm bolts, in their respective locations. So let's see if maybe it'll be easier this time. Unlike the front, where I said the bolts always go front to back, top to bottom, in this particular setup, because the caliper will be in the way, we're actually going to put the bolt from back to front. Okay. We have it somewhat in. We could finish it with the impact. Okay, we got it in. It was a lot easier than last time. Okay. We'll do the same thing with the bottom one. The bottom one we will put in by inserting a punch in the front to create some leverage. Once we get the bolt somewhat in, here we go, like so. Now we can finish to bolt it in with a wrench. Like I said, you can finish to wrench it in with a wrench. If you have a ratchet wrench, even better. Until the nut, the threaded part appears on the other side, then you could put the nut and you know, cinch it with the impact. So now that we pinned the strut to the bottom clevis, we can hook up the stabilizer bar link rod. Be mindful of the grease fittings that are on a link rod, because if they're Detroit axle, it could be loose, so you know, just be careful of that. And to cinch these down, you have a 14mm nut, and if you're going to have to hold it with a 15mm wrench in that back. Okay, so that's hooked up. Let's put the harnesses back on. Brake line first. It's got a separate fastener, 12mm, onto the strut itself. Nothing too crazy, guys. Don't get too crazy with the torquing. And then we have a wheel speed sensor. I believe that's what this is. It's a 10mm. There we go, 10mm. All right, so let's torque everything down. Okay, strut to knuckle. Torque is 133 foot-pounds. Maybe cinch it down with a ratchet first. Singles on the bottom. $133. Okay. Link rod to strut. And stabilizer bar, that's 29 foot-pounds. All right, 29 foot-pounds it is. We can now grease the grease fittings. We'll put the wheels back on. That's 76 foot-pounds. We'll get the weight off wheels, and then we'll torque the nuts in the back seats. That's also 29 foot-pounds. All right, so I like to put my hands on what I did. This is torqued, this is torqued, this is torqued, and this is torqued. I tighten these two nuts right here, 10 and 12mm, and this was the other one that I took off to loosen up all the harness. All there's left to do is torque the top, but before we put the thing weight on wheels and off the jacks, we're going to put the wheels back on. Obviously, the torque on that is 76 foot-pounds. Then I'm going to show you how to take care of the inside. And this is the last of it. The car is back with the weight on wheels. We're going to torque the top of the struts to 29 foot-pounds. And obviously, guys, what you see done on the right, you're going to do on the left, or should I say, this is the left side. What you see done on the left, you're gonna do on the right. As always, if this video was of help to you, smash that like button. Remember to subscribe, and we will see you at the next video, guys.